What? Why is there a divorce document here? Mom, what happened? What? A divorce document? And what's this next to it? A wedding invitation. It has dates and names. It looks genuine. I can't believe Dad is marrying his lover. And she's your best friend. Mom, what are you going to do with this? What do you mean, what am I going to do? I'm not doing anything. Then, would it be bad if we go to the wedding instead? It should be fine, right? Since they have given us the wedding invitation, it means we're also invited, doesn't it? I'm not going because I don't want to participate. If you want to go, you two should go together. I could never have dreamed that my husband had an affair with my best friend. The shock when I found out was immeasurable. But to make matters worse, the two of them handed me the divorce papers and a wedding invitation. I never imagined to be at the receiving end of such a cruel treatment. I felt overwhelmed by despair and humiliation. As I stared at the divorce papers and the invitation right in front of me, indescribable sadness and frustration welled up inside me, and I struggled desperately to hold back my tears. Being subjected to such disrespectful and rude behavior, anger boiled inside me, and I felt unbearably frustrated. But I had no idea how to retaliate in this situation. I didn't know what to do and just stood there, dumbfounded. However, looking at my devastated state, my high school sons seemed a bit different than usual. They appeared to be deep in thought, and their expressions suggested they were planning something. I couldn't predict what my sons were thinking. Okay, we'll go and make Dad's wedding as lively as possible. We need to make it a wedding for everyone to remember. What are you two talking about? We'll celebrate their wedding on your behalf, Mom. What are you planning? You're not planning to wreak havoc, are you? Of course not. We're not going to do anything. We'll let Dad know in a different way. Just wait and see. I was a bit perplexed by my son's words. I had always seen them admiring their father, so I never expected them to show such a stern stance toward him. Moreover, it was the first time they clearly show an intent to rebel against their father, and I couldn't help but feel surprised by their attitude. Yet, it seemed that my sons were indeed on my side, and I felt relieved by this fact. So what exactly is the plan? Inwardly, I wasn't expecting much from their plan, given their mischievous nature. I thought this might just be another one of their whimsical ideas. However, I was touched that they were thinking of me and trying to do something, so I listened intently to them, engaging seriously in their conversation. By the end of our talk, a smile had naturally returned to my face, and I felt a renewed brightness. If what they devised succeeded, it might be possible to finally hold my husband accountable for his actions. Although I still had some anxieties, with their robust support, I felt that perhaps I could overcome the upcoming challenges. My name is Michelle, 45 years old. I support my family with a part-time job while raising two sons. When I had my second son, I felt the need to carefully consider the balance between work and home, and decided to resign from my company. However, having worked seriously as a full-time employee for 15 years, I had a deep attachment to my job. It was not an easy decision to quit, but I made a significant decision to prioritize my family. Currently, Ryan, my eldest son, is in his final year of high school and approaching a very critical period as he prepares for entrance exams. It's a time when he must focus on his studies and seriously consider his future career path. On the other hand, Alex, my youngest son, is in his first year of high school and still in the midst of adolescence. This is a challenging time in a different way from his brother, and he requires support from the family as well. We are facing the challenges of their growth while navigating daily life as a family. My husband, Brian, and I originally worked at the same place, but I approached him, and we started dating. I had lived alone in a different city during college, but gradually the desire to return to my hometown grew stronger, and I decided to actively seek employment there. Fortunately, I was able to work at a local company, and during the orientation for new hires, I was surprised to be reunited with my best friend. Is that you, Tracy? Are you also employed here? Yes, I can't believe we end up at the same company. It's really surprising. I couldn't help but raise my voice in surprise. It was an unexpected reunion. Unable to contain my surprise and joy, I grasped Tracy's hand. Despite not having seen each other for a while, it felt as if we had been together until just the day before, and we shared our joy. It seemed Tracy had decided to work at this company with similar feelings. Since our homes were in a small town and job options were limited, it was natural for both of us to end up at the same workplace. Tracy and I had wanted the same type of job, so it made sense that we would end up at the same company. Being able to work in our desired jobs was also a cause for joy, and we were excited about starting anew. During our school days, we attended the same school, and were especially close, spending a lot of time together. We always did things together, sharing fun times and supporting each other even through difficult moments. Tracy and I could talk about anything, sharing even the smallest things. We were truly best friends. You like Brian, right, Michelle? No, that's not true. No, it's obvious on your face. Isn't he popular? Yeah, he is cool and popular. I'm 10 years younger, so I'm not a romantic prospect, right? Why are you so negative? It won't come across just by thinking about it. Why don't you try confessing boldly? I can't be as proactive as you, Tracy. I used to be unable to confess myself. But as I got older, I wanted to express my feelings honestly. You'll regret it if you don't. Tracy said this with a gentle smile, encouraging me. That smile also seemed to enjoy the situation a bit. Indeed, I didn't want to keep my feelings hidden, and I had a strong desire to express them. So, later on, I gathered the courage to confess my feelings to him. Although I was anxious I hoped something might develop from it, and decided to take the plunge and confess. The outcome was totally unexpected. You know, I'm going to date him thanks to you, Tracy. You and him? Really? Tracy was more surprised than anyone, but I was the one who was most shocked. I had braced myself for rejection, never dreaming that he would agree to have a relationship with me. His reaction was beyond my expectations, and so a new relationship began. After that, we got to know each other deeply, and after dating for about 2 years, we decided to get married. After marriage, we were blessed with 2 sons, and I switched to part-time work when our second son was born. Our home has always been filled with peaceful and enjoyable days. In our daily life, the time I spent with Brian and our children were increasing, and we were enjoying happy, memorable times. However, things gradually began to change when our son started elementary school. Up until then, our lives had been progressing smoothly, but with the boys' growth came new challenges and changes. Brian often planned family outings. As weekends and holidays approached, he would suggest new places and find events that the whole family could enjoy. Thanks to his efforts, we were able to visit various places and have a great time. It was always a joy to spend holidays as a family, and I feel happy whenever I see the smiling faces of my children. However, even while enjoying these times, there was always a complex feeling lurking in my heart. Big bro, help me. I can't put the bait the right way. Try to do it yourself. Right? Everything is an experience. Michelle, don't just stand there, join us. I'm fine just watching. The boys were engrossed in fishing for the first time, looking truly excited. However, I had a hard time touching insects and was terrified of attaching the bait, so I was only able to watch from a distance. Brian let the boys experience various activities, but most of them were difficult or unpleasant for me. Many involved outdoor activities and physical strength, and even when Brian and the boys seemed to enjoy themselves, I often found it hard to join in and was frequently left out. I simply couldn't keep up with the 3 of them physically, quickly getting out of breath and exhausted. I increasingly felt alienated because I couldn't share in their enjoyment. Also, when my sons and husband were engrossed in building model kits, I couldn't understand its appeal and would end up watching from a distance, wondering what was so interesting about it. I began to think that maybe I was just a nuisance being around them in this state. Consequently, I naturally started to stay home alone more often, participating less in family outings and activities. While I felt a bit sad, seeing the 3 of them having fun was enough for me. By the time the boys reached middle school, my husband had become very popular among their friends. He interacted easily with the boys' friends, often going out and playing with them. As a result, Brian seemed like a friendly and reliable adult in their eyes. Thanks to this, it was not uncommon to receive phone calls from my friends' mothers saying, "Thank you so much for everything." They were expressing their gratitude for my husband's attentiveness and his caring nature towards the children. Our sons, too, seemed proud of their father and would boast about him to their friends, while other mothers struggled with their children's growth and rebellious phases. Thanks to my husband, I had a relatively smooth day-to-day life without much trouble. However, I was troubled by a different issue. They think I'm an idiot, right? Yeah, that attitude needs to be fixed. That's no good. Give them a piece of your mind. I overheard this rough conversation while doing the dishes. Ryan had become more rebellious since starting high school. I felt that Alex was influenced by him and started to act similarly. Ryan's personality change might have been due to the new environment at high school, but I think it was more influenced by my husband's character. That's right, keep it up. My husband was fully participating in their conversation. He was entirely supporting the Ryan. I wished he would calm them down a bit as a father. It was as if I had 3 sons instead of 2. I felt somewhat disappointed listening to this. 2 years have passed, and now Alex is also in high school, while his brother is in his last year. I was recently worried about a request from the boys. Please, I've told you, it's not possible right now. Why not? My friend's parents have allowed them. It should be fine if I'm with Ryan, right? I'm already 16 years old. The boys kept pestering me about getting their licenses while I was preparing dinner. However, I continued setting the table. Ryan had started talking about getting a moped license in his second year of high school. Considering his personality, I was worried and hesitant to let him get a license for safety reasons. However, he was surprisingly persistent in seeking permission for the license. After Alex turned 16, the two of them were pleading together to get my approval. It was like dealing with 3 people, not 2. Both of you have been keeping your promises. Maybe it's time to let you do this. I'm worried about you getting into trouble. We'll be fine. We've always listened to what you've said so far, and we won't give up until you agree this time. My husband, almost like their brother, seemed to understand the boys more than I did. Maybe I should trust him. I allowed them to get their licenses reluctantly. After waiting eagerly, the boys finally got their moped licenses. They had been studying while hoping for my permission. Furthermore, Ryan used his saved money from his part-time job to buy the moped he had always wanted. Seeing this, Alex also started working part-time, and a few months later he bought his own moped. Look at this. My bike is cool, right? Mine is cooler in both color and shape though. The boys happily talked about their bikes. Seeing their smiles, I felt relieved that I had allowed them to get their licenses. However, these days were short-lived, and my worries were confirmed. Brian, I got another message from Ryan and Alex. They won't be home for dinner tonight either. It can't be helped. They've got their bikes now, so riding is fun for them. They'll settle down eventually. They're still in high school, and it's worrying that they're out so late. Well, at least they contacted us. They're working part-time and are probably eating out with their earnings. Maybe we can cut them some slack. I guess so. I just hope they don't get into any trouble. They're not kids anymore, and they act responsibly. Contrary to my worries, my husband didn't seem concerned about their late returns. I had always thought of him as a father who put his sons first. Although he spent a lot of time with the boys, it seemed as though he was just taking them along when they went out. And I began to feel he might not be as interested in them as I thought. I decided to talk to them myself, without relying on my husband. I'm worried because you both haven't been eating dinner at home lately and coming home late. It's fun being with friends. I'll make sure to contact you when it's late. I get that, but since you're working late, could you come straight home after your shift? Then you'd be home by 10 p.m. All right. If I come straight home after work, can we set my curfew for 10:30 p.m.? Sure, just make sure you keep your promise. Fine. Sighing with apparent annoyance, Ryan and Alex left the room. They must find me bothersome, but I tell myself it's for their own good. Just when I thought one worry was out of the way, another surfaced. Check this out. Cool, isn't it? Wow. Cars are really something to aspire to. Seeing us excited about mopeds makes me feel like we're still just kids. Unbelievably, Brian had gone and bought a car without discussing it with me. I was dumbfounded by his unabashed behavior and felt dizzy. Even I, who knew little about cars, could tell it was a good one from the triumphant look on his face. Even though he got it at a discounted price from a friend, it was certainly not a cheap purchase. I thought about returning the car, but that would be inconvenient to his friend, so I had no choice but to let it go this time. In exchange, I decided to cut his allowance. I won't need dinner tonight. I'll be home late. Again, I have various social obligations. Is there a problem with that? Ignoring my concerns, Brian left with a nonchalant look. With the boys not around as his usual playmates, he started going out alone at night for drives. He'd come home late, ignoring what I said, and spent money as he pleased, claiming it was his own earnings. Among the 3 brothers, it seems the eldest, my husband, is the most troublesome. Overwhelmed, I called my best friend to vent about Brian. He's so irresponsible, more troublesome than the kids. Maybe try changing your perspective. I'm single, so I might not have the best advice, but isn't cooking every day tough? Why don't you use that time to distract yourself a bit? Really, definitely. You never change, always worrying about something, haha. I felt like my concerns were always taken lightly. Perhaps they seemed trivial and insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Inspired by my friend's advice, I decided to enjoy my own time more. It seemed the advice worked. I believed in it. But the boys soon shared a different truth with me. One holiday, after Brian had left as usual, Ryan and Alex hurried to me and dropped a bombshell. Mom, it looks like Dad is out with another woman. Is he having an affair? Yes, exactly, an affair. They mentioned it so casually, I initially struggled to believe it. I couldn't understand why they would suddenly say Brian was having an affair, raising my doubts. You should say that more carefully. Mom is shocked. Sorry, Mom, did we surprise you? Yes, it was so sudden, I'm just shocked. Actually, a friend of ours said he saw Dad on a date with a woman. Couldn't it have just been a business acquaintance? I don't think it was just business. They said they've seen them together in Dad's car and shopping together several times. Did he follow Dad around? Was he imagining things? No, it wasn't just him. Our other friends have said the same thing. How did they all know it was Dad? They used to hang out with him a lot. Everyone knows him. You're not joking? This is for real. It's true. That's what they're saying. Some even sent me a photo. Look, isn't this Dad? I was shocked when I looked at Ryan's phone. It was a photo of Brian and Tracy holding hands, looking happy together. I had never imagined the friend I confided in about my husband would be his affair partner. I was so taken aback, I could barely stand. I believed my sons and decided to confront Brian about the truth. As soon as Brian came home, I showed him the photo. What is this photo? That's me and Tracy, so what? I hadn't expected such a blunt response. Far from making excuses, Brian was defiant, and his laughter only fueled my anger. I was thinking about getting a divorce. Divorce? Why all of a sudden? I had intended to press him about the affair, but his unexpected words left me speechless. Without any sign of surprise, Brian remained calm. Perhaps I was just a pawn in his game all along. It's not fun being with you, and I've been thinking about divorce for a long time. Then you should never have married me. Did you feel proud having married a wife 10 years younger? Is that the reason you got married? What other reason could there be? But you and Tracy are the same age, right? She has a similar personality to you, but it's more fun being with her. It was natural for us to get together. What will you tell Ryan and Alex? At first, taking them anywhere was fresh and fun, but they've grown up now. Playing with them just feels like hanging out with any acquaintance. So, it doesn't really matter to me whether they're there or not. Why would you say something like that when you're their father? I'm just this kind of person and we'd be better off divorced. I'll prepare the divorce papers. With that, my husband casually walked away as if going for a stroll. I had not previously considered divorcing him. However, being the one from whom divorce was initiated felt incredibly unjust. Tears welled up within me uncontrollably given the unbelievable situation. Months passed since that day, and my husband hadn't returned home at all. I called him multiple times, but he never called back. I was left wondering if he truly intended to go through with the divorce. But then one day, he suddenly appeared. Have you been well? It wasn't just him, Tracy was with him. And that left me speechless. I sensed something from their eerie smiles. Here I brought this. The divorce papers I mentioned. You come back home after so long just to bring this. And this is from me and Tracy, for the whole family to enjoy. Along with the divorce papers, he handed me another envelope. When I opened it, it contained a wedding invitation. Sorry, we're getting married. Are you mocking me? Inviting us to your wedding after having an affair. It's your fault for marrying Brian. How does that make any sense? I was supposed to marry Brian. I pushed you toward him because I wanted to get to know him. I always thought you'd eventually split. After you did, I planned to date Brian, but I never expected you'd marry him. Yet, I couldn't give up and continue to approach Brian at work. We were careful not to turn it into an affair since you were still married, which is why it took so long. I can't believe this. You will pay dearly for your affair, so be prepared. Are you mistaken? This wasn't an affair. We started dating after I discussed divorce with you. There's no problem here. You didn't oppose the divorce, right? This all happened after we decided on the divorce, so it's not an affair. That makes no sense. You were dating each other before you brought up divorce, so how can there be no relationship? Getting married just a few months later, you started going out alone and coming home late because of the affair, right? You two must have had a relationship long before the talks on getting divorced. Don't just assume things. Do you have proof there was anything more? Anyone could see what was going on. Don't push your thoughts on me. The length of the dating period doesn't matter. We're getting married because we want to. Both of them were confronting me aggressively. Realizing this was going nowhere, I decided to stop responding for the moment. I never expected such treatment from my husband and friend. I'm busy with wedding preparations, so please submit the divorce papers yourself. I need them by the day before the wedding. I'll contact you later about matters concerning the boys and property division. That's all. Thank you. With those words, they left. The divorce papers already had my husband's signature. As I looked at the adjacent invitation, tears flowed naturally. I couldn't think of anything, not even how much time had passed. I'm home. The front door opened, and Ryan and Alex returned. Why is there a divorce paper here? Mom, what happened? What's this? A divorce paper. And what's next to it? A wedding invitation. It has dates and names, looks real. Isn't Tracy Mom's friend? Is she his lover? I can't believe Dad is marrying her. Mom, what are you going to do with this? What do you mean, what am I going to do? I'm not doing anything. Then, would it be bad if we go to the wedding? It should be fine, right? If this is here, that means we're invited, right? I'm not going, so if you go together. When I mentioned I wouldn't attend, they exchanged glances and laughed. They seemed to be plotting something, giggling while talking. Got it. We'll make sure Dad's wedding is extremely memorable. Make it grand. It should be a wedding he'll never forget. What are you two talking about? We'll celebrate for you, Mom. What are you planning? You're not going to ruin the wedding, are you? Of course not. We won't do anything. We'll let Dad know in a different way. Just wait and see, right? It's our dear father's big day. We must make it unforgettable. They surprised me, considering their relationship with their father. I couldn't hide my astonishment that they could show such a stern attitude towards him. It seems the boys were on my side. Even though you like Dad, you're helping me get back at him. We love Dad, but that's a separate issue. It was Dad who had the affair, so he needs to take responsibility. That's right. We're not kids anymore. He has to take responsibility for himself. I couldn't hide my happiness that my sons had grown up to be such responsible individuals. They were often mischievous, but they always kept their promises. When they went to get their moped licenses, they didn't do it behind my back but desperately convinced me to give permission. They always stuck to their principles better than anyone else. If they were wrong, they could admit their mistakes and apologize. They normally try to be cool, but I was reminded of their straightforward characters. So, what kind of plan are you thinking of? Inwardly, I wasn't expecting much from them. Still, I was touched that they thought of me, and I listened intently to their conversation. By the time the conversation ended, my face had brightened a bit. If this plan succeeds, it might be possible to make my husband seriously reconsider his actions. On the day of the wedding, Ryan and Alex left the house with determination. I wanted to see the outcome of the plan they had told me about, but the thought of seeing my husband and Tracy in their finest angered me, so I decided to wait at home for the boys to return. I kept my cell phone with me at all times in case they contacted me. I stared at the unchanging clock, anxiously waiting. Finally, the phone rang, and it was a video call from Ryan. Can you see my face? Yes, I can see you. Looks like the plan is going as expected, so don't worry. I'll keep a close eye on it. The cell phone screen showed the venue, and it seemed that the bride and groom were about to make their entrance. Seeing the two of them reminded me of my own wedding day. Some guests were shown on camera, but I hardly recognized anyone. It seemed that few of my workplace colleagues attended, perhaps having heard about me. As the couple walked towards the altar, the priest asked, "Do you take this woman as your bride?" And that's when it all unfolded. Wait a minute. Stop the wedding. A woman's voice shouted loudly, and the surprised reactions of the attendees were captured on camera. In front of the door stood a woman with a furious expression. The camera showed her walking confidently down the aisle, while some attendees looked on with a smirk. It seemed surreal, almost like a staged act they thought had been planned. But when the woman lunged at my ex-husband, everyone realized it wasn't a performance and gasped in shock. Explain yourself. I didn't know you were divorced or getting married. How did you find out about this? Brian, what is this? Who is this woman? The scene unfolding in the church stunned the attendees, who began to raise their voices. The voices of my husband and his group faded, and only the voices of those near the camera could be heard. It's like a scene from a drama, isn't it? I've never seen anything like this outside of a drama. The boys were delighted by the turn of events. I clapped and laughed through the camera at the unexpected situation. Ryan and Alex received information from their friends that Brian did not only have an affair with Tracy, he had relationships with several women. The woman currently confronting him was one of them. If Tracy is A, then this woman might be called B. It's a bit funny, but since I don't know her name, let's call her that. Thinking it could be ammunition for retaliation, I had only shown photos of Brian with Tracy. He probably never thought I had such photos. When it was decided that Brian and Tracy would marry, I told Ms. B about it. Ms. B seemed to have been promised by him that they would be together once he was divorced. He must have planned to continue playing around even after marrying Tracy. When Ms. B heard about the marriage, she couldn't stay silent. Another one is coming. Really? This is seriously funny. As Ryan and Alex said this, another woman appeared on camera. She looked as if she was about to bite someone. Indeed, Ms. C had arrived. Ms. C also proceeded forward like Ms. B. It was like watching a drama I had seen long ago. Ms. C shouted at a surprised Tracy, "Why are you in a wedding dress? That's not right." Everyone at the scene was shocked by Ms. C's appearance, falling silent. Thanks to this, I could hear everything said through the camera clearly. Throughout, I could hear my son's laughter, and I could easily imagine their expressions. I felt satisfied with the situation, but the boys seemed to find it lacking. This was supposed to get even more interesting. I'll go check it out. Counting on you. Ryan and Alex had reached out to all of Brian's mistresses. After a while, the camera displayed 3 women unexpectedly. It was D, E, and F. With an energy that seemed like they might lunge at my husband any moment, the 3 ran up to confront him and Tracy. "What's this wedding about? Explain properly. Wasn't I supposed to be the one you were marrying?" Brian was bombarded with questions by 5 women. He should have explained properly to everyone that he was marrying Tracy, but it was all his fault. And I really think the boys' initiative is incredible. They are so much like their father in this way. They had successfully pulled off such a plan. We were wondering what would happen if we were to invite all these women to the wedding. We told everyone that Dad and Tracy were getting married. That photo was taken at a friend's workplace, so we thought they'd show up again. When any of the mistresses showed up, we'd pass them a note. It says, "You've been deceived, and there's another main woman." And I even wrote down my contact info. I never thought adults would easily believe such a prank. I thought it would only be taken as a joke by the store staff. Everyone I gave a letter to has emailed me, "Are you serious?" While surprised, I read through the content of the emails carefully. I realized that all the women were older, which is perhaps why he chose to marry Tracy. The women in their 50s, who thought they were seriously involved with him, must have not wanted to miss a chance to marry. So it's understandable they'd be anxious if told Brian was getting married. The staff at the store, who were friends with my sons, cooperated because they knew Brian well enough to believe the women weren't lying. What a pitiful man, to not recognize a friend of his son's he used to play with. If he had noticed about them, the outcome might have been slightly different. The venue was in turmoil. Amidst this chaos, with attendees unable to grasp the situation, security stepped in. Everyone was urged to leave the area and head to a backstage room. Brian's hair and clothes were a mess, and he could barely stand. As soon as they entered the room, I could hear Tracy shouting at him. I felt incredibly relieved. "That's enough." "Thanks, Ryan." "Alex, be careful on your way home. If you're okay with it, then it's fine. Let's go then." With that, my sons ended the call and left the venue. The next day, Brian showed up at our house looking furious. "This was your doing." Because of that, Tracy and I got divorced immediately. Despite his self-inflicted troubles, he tried to blame us. Ryan and Alex just smirked at the irresponsible behavior of their father. It seems Tracy finally realized Brian's true nature and decided to divorce him. Their marriage lasted only 1 day, an unfortunately brief outcome. Even with such an ex-husband, there were things we needed to discuss, so it was convenient for me that he came over. "You'll definitely be paying for your affair." "What are you talking about?" I laid out photo after photo, evidence of his infidelity. I had researched and knew I could still claim compensation even after the divorce, especially since he had relationships with not just his best friend but 5 other women. However, after the incident at the wedding, it seemed that none of the 5 women wanted to continue their relationships with him. Not a single one remained by his side. "Why do you have these pictures here?" "Talking about this after we're divorced is pointless. You need to take responsibility for your actions." With nothing more to discuss, I asked him to leave, but he didn't move. That's when Ryan and Alex escorted him out to the front door. "Can't you hear that you're being told to leave? Clean up your own mess. You're an adult," they admonished him. About a month later, I heard through the grapevine that both Brian and Tracy had left their jobs. She had abandoned him, and they went their separate ways. There was no way that such a dramatic wedding wouldn't become the talk of their workplace. Unable to withstand the scrutiny, they apparently resigned not long after. I likely won't see either of their faces ever again. Now, Ryan is preparing for college entrance exams, studying hard. Alex has discovered a passion for cooking at his part-time job in a restaurant and wants to become a chef. Though there's still a bit of rebellious nature in him as a teenager, I see it as a sign of their growth and watch over them warmly. I'm well aware of my son's tenacious nature. It's only a little longer until they leave the nest. I plan to steadfastly support them until they achieve their dreams. Did something happen? The phone finally connected. I quickly informed my husband of the situation. It seems someone broke in. The room is a mess, and your room is okay, but something might have been taken. I'm calling the police right now." Wait a moment. Actually, my husband hesitated before revealing something unexpected. I had let my mother stay in the room during our trip. What does that mean? My name is Karen. I'm 29 years old and a company employee. I've been working relentlessly since graduating from university, and I got married just a year ago. My partner is Sam, a business associate from a collaborative company. I first met Sam when I attended a meeting at his company as the new project leader. Nervous, he greeted me with a smile. "Nice to meet you, I'm Sam. I look forward to working together with you today." After several meetings, we gradually got to know each other better. One day after a meeting, Sam asked, "Karen, do you have some time now? Would you like to have tea at a cafe I recommend?" "That sounds nice. I'd love to go," I responded. During our conversation at the cafe, I was drawn to his sincerity and sense of humor, and I found myself opening up to him. "Karen, to be honest, I've been wanting to get to know you better recently. How about having dinner together this weekend?" When Sam said those words, my heart was filled with surprise and joy. Yes, I'd be delighted to come. After that, we began to go on more dates. Sam was always kind and listened to me attentively. It was half a year later. One night, after dinner, Sam suddenly confessed his love, saying, "Karen, to tell you the truth, I've always been thinking about you. Would you go out with me?" "I love you too, Sam. I look forward to our future together." From that moment, our romantic relationship began. As we continued dating, Sam proposed several times, saying, "Karen, let's live together. Let's get married." At first, I hesitated, thinking it was a bit soon, but I was drawn to Sam's deep love and his strong desire to live together. Then, one day, I responded, "Sam, I also want to build a future with you. Let's get married." He was overjoyed, and from that moment, our new family life began. Having lived alone for a long time, sharing meals, watching TV, and enjoying conversations at home brought me great happiness. Thus, I am very satisfied with my married life with Sam. However, if there is one concern since getting married, it's about my mother-in-law. She had Sam at a very young age and is still in her 40s. Sam, raised by his single mother, is very close to her, and they often go shopping together at her invitation. Perhaps because of this, my mother-in-law finds it hard to let go of Sam, and she frequently interferes in our marital life. When we were choosing a dining table for our new apartment, my mother-in-law came along. "Karen, how about this table? I think it's wonderful." "Yes, but it might be a bit too big." I hesitated, but my mother-in-law pushed further. "No, having a table this size will make family meals much more comfortable. Right, Sam?" She prompted Sam for agreement. "Yeah, maybe a larger one would be better." As Sam agreed, my mother-in-law decided by saying, "Then, it's settled." Moreover, for some reason she had received a spare key from him and often came to our house without prior notice to cook. One day when I came home, my mother-in-law was making clam chowder in the kitchen. "Karen, welcome home. I'm making clam chowder today." She said this with a smile. "Mom, it's a bit troublesome when you come over without notice." I said that modestly, to which she responded with a smile. "Don't be so formal. We're family, and it shouldn't be a problem to visit any time, right?" Moreover, my mother-in-law often asked me to cook for her. "Karen, next weekend, please come to my house with Sam and prepare the meal." But you are such a good cook. Why do I need to do it?" "It's not like that. It's good for young people to take the opportunity to work hard. Sam is looking forward to it." "Yes, your cooking is always delicious, Karen. I'm looking forward to it." Sam responded nervously, and my mother-in-law's interference continued, increasing my stress gradually. Not only was she interfering, but she also showed blatant displeasure towards me, often throwing sharp words my way. For example, when we were celebrating Sam's birthday at our house recently, She showed up unannounced. Happy birthday. Ah, Mom. Oh? Is Karen here too? Were you off today? I took a day off to celebrate Sam's birthday. That's a mistake. Sam and I were planning to have a big celebration for his birthday, just by ourselves. Your presence spoils our plans. I wish you had read the room a bit better. Even so, I am married to Sam. So what if you're his wife? You're not claiming to be better than a mother, are you? Your connection is just a piece of paper, so don't get ahead of yourself. We have a blood connection, and I am the one who brought Sam into this world. Thus, she prioritizes the parent-child relationship and looks down on our marital relationship. She does not favor me because she loves her son dearly and is often cold towards me. Still, I convinced myself to endure this, avoiding any sort of jealousy. The fact that she raised her son alone is indeed worthy of respect. However, an incident I couldn't forgive occurred. It happened last week. In the living room, there was an old watch passed down to me from my deceased grandfather. When my grandfather fell ill and closed his watch store, he entrusted me with this oldest watch. This antique is worth over $20,000, and my grandfather's will stated that it should be used in times of financial hardship. After my grandfather's death, this watch became a very valuable heirloom to me. The reason I keep this worn-out watch in the living room is to always feel close to my beloved grandfather. However, when my mother-in-law visited, she saw this watch and criticized. "What is this? Why keep such an old, worn-out watch in the living room as if it has any value?" I tried earnestly to explain that the watch was a valuable antique and a memento from my grandfather, but she showed no understanding. Seeing her looking down on the keepsake, I felt as if both my deceased grandfather and I were being despised, which was very painful. If being scorned by her meant protecting it, I chose to store the watch in a drawer in my room and keep it carefully. Later, she asked with a laugh, "What happened to that worn-out watch?" When I replied that it was stored in my room, she looked pleased that things had gone her way, which further irritated me. Of course, after she left, Sam asked, "Are you okay?" and comforted me. I expressed my dissatisfaction toward his mother to him and shared my painful feelings. While he listens to me, he always responds, "My mother does it because she loves me. I'm sorry." I am not seeking an apology from him, but rather his support against his mother. Despite this, he respects both his mother, who raised him alone, and me. Understanding his struggle between his wife and his mother, I could not blame him. As a result, I had no choice but to endure it for his sake. One day, he suddenly planned a week-long vacation trip. I felt a lightness in my heart thanks to his thoughtfulness to ease the tension with my mother-in-law. We promptly took the vacation and departed on a small family trip. At the destination, I thoroughly enjoyed our time together, just my husband and me, without thinking about my mother-in-law at all. It was undoubtedly a happy week. Time flew by, and the day to return home arrived. Sam had to stop by his office first, so I went home alone. As I walked back, reminiscing about the pleasant memories of the trip, I unlocked the door to our house. It was our familiar apartment, but the moment I stepped into the living room, I felt something was off. What could it be? I wondered to myself. I walked around the living room with an uncertain feeling. Wait a minute. I remembered closing the windows and curtains tightly when we left. However, now I noticed the curtains were slightly open and the window lock was undone. The sofa cushions were placed haphazardly, and the TV remote, usually kept in its case, was neatly lined up on the table. It seemed like things in the room had been subtly moved. The room was clean, but as someone who meticulously keeps everything in order, these small discrepancies made me deeply uneasy. When I went to the kitchen, I found that some food was missing from the fridge, and there were water marks in the sink, clearly indicating recent use. What does this mean? I looked at the entrance, but saw no other signs. I suspected that my mother-in-law, who has a spare key, might have entered without permission, but it seemed unlikely she would do so while we were away. Also, it was impossible for us to have left the window unlocked. At that time, I believed my mother-in-law had some sense of propriety. Then, the suspicion that it might have been a burglar crossed my mind. However, I was reluctant to accept that possibility and forcefully denied the thought. If it were a burglar, there would be more chaos. Everything inside is intact, so this must be a misunderstanding. Sam probably tinkered with something before we left. Despite trying to convince myself, my attempts to contact my husband failed, and my anxiety only grew. What should I do if, by chance, someone did enter? As I opened the door to my room quietly, feeling apprehensive, I was shocked by the scene before me. My room was completely ransacked. Clothes that should have been neatly arranged were haphazardly thrown on the bed, and underwear was scattered on the floor. The drawers of the dresser were overflowing with clothes, all jumbled up. The most shocking thing was the state of my desk. Every drawer had been turned upside down, and the contents were strewn about. I hurriedly checked the other rooms, but only my room had been affected. Why just this room? There's nothing of high value here. As I thought about it, the watch inherited from my grandfather came to mind. No way. Why is it gone? I searched around the desk while digging through, but the watch was nowhere to be found. At that moment, I was certain the watch had been targeted. Despite my suspicions about why such an old watch needed to be stolen, I lost my composure and hurriedly tried to contact my husband again. Did something happen? This time, the call connected. I quickly explained the situation to my husband. It seems someone broke in. The room is a mess and your room is okay, but something might have been taken. I'm calling the police right now. Really? Yes, some food is also missing from the fridge. Someone might have sneaked in. Wait a minute. I want to check it out myself before calling the police. I'll be right back. Meanwhile, see if anything else is missing. But I can't wait. This is urgent. Some of my things are also missing. Actually, my husband said something unexpected with an uneasy tone. I had let my mother stay in the room during our trip. What does that mean? Our apartment is close to the station and has good access to downtown, so my mother asked me if she could stay here to keep it safe. Wait, why would you make such an important decision on your own? I wasn't informed at all. Knowing that I dislike her, I was angry at Sam's lack of consideration for letting her use our apartment. However, he did not try to address my anger but simply tried to persuade me. There's no need to be so upset. It's always been like this. My mother comes and goes as she pleases. Just endure it like before. That's not a joke. I can't forgive this. My mother-in-law ransacked the room. It's outrageous to just endure it. Then, suddenly a voice from behind. Karen, why are you so upset? Mom. Are you talking to Sam right now? Why do you speak to my son like that? I'm angry because he decided on his own to lend out the room to you during our trip. How dare you? Blaming Sam is like saying you hate that I'm here. Indeed, I do not wish for you to freely come and go in our house. What? You're really a coward. Karen, don't talk like that. You just blame and get angry at my mother without any basis, acting like a victim, but it's all just your imagination. It was clear that I had actually suffered damage, and it was true that my mother-in-law had used the room, so it was unclear why I was being blamed. Moreover, it was surprising that Sam would defend his mother in this situation. After a while, he came home, furious, and took her side, blaming me. I can't accept such accusations. Karen, this is unforgivable. I forcibly took my husband and mother-in-law to my room to show them the situation. He could not hide his surprise at the disarray. However, she showed no sign of surprise, as if she already knew, and it quickly became clear that she was the culprit. Mom, please be honest. Did you ransack this room? Even if it was messy, exaggerating about it is a bit much. I just forgot to clean up. That's all. If I clean up now, there shouldn't be a problem, right? I was going to do it later anyway. You're being too sensitive. She admitted her wrongdoing but showed no sign of remorse, Upon discovering that she was the culprit, Sam suddenly felt awkward and remained silent, looking down. She began to justify herself. "I borrowed Karen's clothes because I left mine at home. We're not that different in height, and I thought it would be okay to borrow a bit. We're family, so getting angry over this seems unreasonable, don't you think? You're being too sensitive." He then started to agree with her. "I think so. You can't blame everything on my mother just because things are missing. Borrowing things among family is normal, and it's strange not to forgive a little mess." I had hoped for an apology from him and wanted her to apologize to me as well. However, the reality was the opposite. He asked me to apologize to her for my supposedly inappropriate words and presumptuous attitude. Despite it being clear that she was responsible for ransacking my room, seeing him staunchly support her rapidly diminished my affection for him. I felt an increasing sense of emptiness. I had endured believing my husband cared for me as much as he did his mother, but the truth was different. To avoid criticism towards himself, he fervently blamed me and clearly favored his mother, making me feel neglected. At that moment, I felt my heart break, and I resolved to take revenge against my mother-in-law. There's no need to hold back and be considerate towards Sam anymore. I cannot let this go. Before he returned, I had already prepared my response. "Mother-in-law, let me ask you clearly, where did you take my watch? I don't know about any watches. Why would I be interested in that old thing?" While she answered, she couldn't hide her agitation. I was certain that she had stolen it, but no matter what my husband would say, I had decided not to forgive her. I pressed her further. "But mother-in-law, you admit that you made a mess in this room, right? There are things that should be here but aren't. You must know about that. Hey, stop suspecting my mom if she says it's not her. Is it worth getting so upset over just a watch? If you really want a watch that badly, I'll buy you a new one, so let's drop this subject. Please stop interfering. That watch is the only heirloom from my grandfather, and it's irreplaceable. I won't give up until I get it back. I've said many times I haven't stolen anything. You're really being too noisy." "It's fine to be noisy. If you truly didn't steal it, then we must consider that a thief broke in. If that's the case, this is now a case for the police, so I must call them immediately. Fingerprinting and other investigations will help us find the culprit quickly." After saying this, I grabbed my cell phone and walked out of the room. At that moment, my mother-in-law hurriedly tried to stop me. "Wait, please wait. There's no need to call the police. To be honest, I did borrow it a little. I will return it in a week, okay? Just a moment ago, you claimed you knew nothing about it. And please don't use the word borrowed. Taking something without permission is the same as stealing. You've just admitted to stealing it. Where is the watch? It's very important to me, and I need it returned immediately. I cannot wait for a week." As I asserted this, she began to sweat profusely. "It's impossible." "Why is that?" "Because I've already sold it to a pawn shop." "What?" "Really, it sold for $20,000. Can you believe it? I didn't think it was worth that much." "Stop joking. Can you return the $20,000 immediately then? I plan to go to the pawn shop myself to retrieve it." I'm sorry, but that's impossible. I've almost completely spent that amount, and only a little is left. So please don't expect anything more from me. You'll have to raise the funds yourself." Witnessing her mocking and disrespectful attitude, I realized that further discussion was pointless, and I decided to take the final step. "I see. This was your last chance, unfortunately." While saying this, I dialed the police. "I'm the person who called earlier. Unfortunately, a theft has occurred and the perpetrator is here. Please come immediately." After the call, Sam and his mother frantically appeared before me, asking, "Who did you just call?" I explained the situation in detail. After contacting Sam, I immediately reported our situation to the police. They told me to check things out first, and if there was indeed an incident, I could call them again. Now, having confirmed with you, it's clear that you've stolen my watch, so I've reported it to the police. Not only did you steal it, you sold it without permission, which is a crime. Using that money for personal use is also a crime. What are you talking about? I kindly converted that unnecessary item into cash for you, and instead of being grateful, you call the police? I'm shocked. Karen, isn't this a bit too much? My mother is your family too. Family? I can't consider someone who steals my belongings and feels nothing about it as family. She's a criminal. A criminal? No, I've said it many times, I haven't done anything. Really? Well, all of this conversation has been recorded, and I plan to submit it to the police as evidence. You shouldn't underestimate the police. Once they check the fingerprints and the pawn shop's camera footage, it will soon be clear that you are the culprit. Continuing to hide it will only make things worse for you. As I smiled coldly, both my mother-in-law and husband showed their anger. This is ridiculous. Just because I borrowed it, it has come to this. Are you serious? If you do this, I won't hesitate to consider divorce. Is that what you want? You'll be in trouble too if we get a divorce. They think the word divorce will make me comply. Calmly, I responded to my husband's smugness. I don't mind at all. It's more problematic that your mother is a criminal. I was prepared for divorce from the beginning. Wait, please. The divorce talk was a joke, just a slip of the tongue. I got too emotional. Please reconsider the divorce. I'll apologize as many times as it takes. Just please overlook my mother's actions. While my husband said this, tears appeared in his eyes. Ironically, it should have been his mother apologizing, yet she just stood there, arms crossed, staring at me intimidatingly. Your excuses are useless. I have forgiven you and her multiple times before, but you always ignore my feelings and continue to defend her. This time, I will not forgive either of you. My firm stance left my husband without a reply, and my mother-in-law was infuriated. Actually, before this incident with the watch, I had already been victimized by your mother. Several times after my payday, the $500 that I had left at home went missing. I knew she had been around, but without evidence, I couldn't speak up. However, since discovering she is the culprit, I had been deliberately placing counterfeit bills. Did you know about that? I explained calmly. What should I do? What should I do? She was panicking and sweating when the police arrived. I explained the situation to the officers. Sam and his mother tried to argue with, "This is just a family matter," or "My wife is exaggerating the situation." But the police, based on the condition of the scene and the recorded conversation, took her into custody on suspicion of theft. Sam went to the police station with her. Accompanied by another officer, I headed to the pawn shop my mother-in-law had mentioned. At the pawn shop, there was evidence of my mother-in-law selling the watch, and surveillance footage was available. Fortunately, my grandfather's watch had not yet been sold and was still there. Thanks to the officer's explanation, I was able to reclaim my grandfather's watch. It was difficult to confront my husband and mother-in-law so directly, but I believe calling the police was the right decision. The moment I held the watch, I felt as if my grandfather was praising me. Subsequently, the divorce proceedings with my husband were completed. Until the end, my husband pleaded to avoid divorce and begged me to save his mother, but I ignored his requests. I occasionally see my husband at work, but I ignore him, and my supervisor, who understands the situation, handles it appropriately. Through lawyers, communication was strictly maintained, and ultimately my husband accepted the divorce. The police added evidence from the pawn shop clerk's testimony, confirming my mother-in-law's guilt. Currently, she is serving a 3-year sentence in prison. Initially, her actions were meant merely to harass me, but after learning that the watch could be sold for an unexpectedly high amount at the pawn shop, she became overexcited and squandered the money. As a result, she lost her part-time job and will likely face difficulties finding employment after her release from prison. What started as relatively minor harassment escalated into a major crime that ultimately devastated her life. The foolishness of her actions is astonishing. Furthermore, since she had no significant savings, the roughly $20,000 needed to reimburse the pawn shop for the watch was ultimately charged to my ex-husband. He is now working hard to earn money for his mother's living expenses, and the details of our divorce and his mother's actions have spread at his workplace, making his daily life uncomfortably scrutinized. Meanwhile, I am free from the stress caused by my ex-husband and his mother, and am thoroughly enjoying my independent life. While my married life cannot be called a success, being able to protect the valuable watch handed down from my beloved grandfather has been a great consolation for me. Currently, I am focusing more on my personal time than on romantic relationships, and I intend to enjoy my single life. I am also interested in finding new hobbies. A new chapter in my life is about to begin. Having overcome past hardships, I am now committed to cherishing myself and fully enjoying my life. I plan to fill the coming days with hope and joy, and to lead an active and positive life.